Alright, today we are working on the 2015 Wrangler Rubicon. Going to change the transfer case oil and later we'll change the transmission fluid. Everywhere I've gone in town, nobody has the appropriate tool, the 14mm Allen, to get in there. So I've got the jack here to hold the skid plate up while I loosen it, and then we'll get it dropped down. Alright, I got all 4 bolts out. They're not in there very tight at all. Didn't need a breaker bar or anything. So, and even the skid plate's not that heavy. The only thing I was using the jack for was to just hold it. So, now that that's off, you can see drain plug, fill plug, self-explanatory. That's a 10mm Allen. Local auto parts store had that for like $4 or $5. So I'll get a catch pan out here and I'll show you the fluid and stuff before we get rolling. So I went up to the Jeep dealer in Fort Collins and talked to them after one of the local parts stores was making me nervous. The one said that it was the same fluid for a manual transmission and the transfer case, and another said no, it's not. So I went to the dealer and kind of paid out the ass for some of the fluid. The ATF4 wasn't very expensive. Get the ticket here so you can see the transmission fluid, the NSG370. That crap's expensive. That's $23 a quart, and I'm betting online it would have been cheaper. So, but the ATF4 is right in line with what it was at the auto parts store. The auto parts store had it for $7.50. The dealer was $8.10. It's a mopar, the actual mopar stuff, so it's probably good to have. Coming up in the other video, the one I couldn't find, the transmission drain plug, it's a 17mm, and the fill plug is a 14, and nobody had the 14. And then of course you'll need a fluid pump. So Napa hooked me up with the Allen tools. They've got the 14mm on order. And again, you know, not super expensive stuff. I don't know if you can read that or not, but basically it was $5 for each one of the tools. $12 for the 14, that's kind of weird. $5 for the 10, 15 for the 17, or yeah, 14 for the 17 mil. So still, I'm the second owner of the vehicle, and I kind of didn't know the condition that the transmission and transfer case were in. I don't know, you know, if the previous guy ground on the gears a lot or not. So I picked up 3 quarts of ATF4. The spec calls for 2.1, so I'd be willing to bet that 2 quarts will fill it. I picked up a third just for the sake of picking up a third. So we'll get set up underneath of there and start draining out some fluid. Alright, before you start loosening these up, it's probably smart to wipe off some of the crap that's around the holes. Not that it really matters on the drain, but it probably matters on the fill plug. I washed this pretty good the last time I used it, so we'll see here. We'll pop the fill plug first. Oh God, that was loose. That wasn't on there very tight at all. So I just kind of wanted to see if it was over full or, whoop, there it goes. Running out of there already. That is pretty nice looking fluid. I probably did not need to do this, but I wanted to anyway, because now I'll know the condition that the fluid's in from here on out. So once that kind of slows down, it's not hot, so we'll just keep going. Even that bottom one, I broke that free by hand without even any effort. So, oh, there we go. I figured that would come roaring out of there. Now we'll let that do its thing for a little bit and dribble all out of there. Alright, it's still dribbling here, but while I've still got some fluid right here, figured I'd take advantage of that and kind of wipe some of that out of the threads there and get the dirt off, so when we go to put the plug back on, everything's nice and clean. Use a clean side of the rag up here and just kind of get all that off there. So was this a waste of money? No, I don't think so. Reason being, I did not know the condition of this. It had 15,000 miles on the fluid. You're supposed to change it at 30. But now I know that the fluid going back in here is going to be nice and clean, and I can wait a whole I could wait a whole 30th hour or whatever. I mean, this it doesn't shift in and out of four-wheel drive weird at all. Everything seems fine. You know, so I think it was money well spent, even though it was 15,000 miles early. Preventative maintenance, man. I mean, rebuilding the transmission at 3 to 5 thou, or a whole $20 worth of fluid. You do the math. That's pretty easy math to me. So I'm going to start sliding that plug back in there. And that was not in there tight. I mean, it took me no effort to break that free. So we'll put this back in and just kind of give it the same amount of effort, which is about right there. So we'll go with that. I'm sure there's a spec. I think it's like 22 pounds on the transmission. I don't know what the spec is on this, but I mean, those were not in there tight and they were not leaking. So I'll get the pan out of the way, or actually I got a little bit of a mess to clean up, and then we'll start pumping some fluid back in. All right, we're all set up here to start pumping some fluid back in. We've got the ATF4 recommended for Mopar, and I trimmed the tube a little bit. Can't get it squished up in there, so trim the tube a little bit to kind of give me a little more help in the bottle, and we will start pumping some fluid in. Take a second to prime it. There it goes. Yeah, that's basically the same color that just came out. I mean, there is like no difference at all here. So alright, one down. There's a little spit left in there, but I got 3 of these, so if I need to kind of transfer some out, we can do that. We'll get set up on the second bottle. Alright, quart number 2. They're not quite full yet. That's just what dribbled out of the edge of the tube there. Actually, we might be full. Stick my finger in there. Oh yeah, we're up there. So what I'm going to do then is, aside from knocking the bottle over and making a giant mess, I'm going to grab a little funnel and dump these two together and then dump the rest of it in there. Alright, so I got to looking, and the amount of fluid left in this other bottle is actually enough for the pump to pump it. So I wanted to squirt it in there as quickly as I can, and it's running out, and then get the plug back in there, since fluid was coming out when I pulled the plug. I wanted fluid to come out when I put the plug back in. Feels about right. Yep. The other thing I'm kind of looking at is the paint. The paint marks line pretty close back up, and I did not have to use that much tension to get that off there, so I am pretty sure that we are going to be okay. So we'll wipe all the rest of this crap off of here. That way I can make sure that I don't see any red on the garage floor later. But that's it. I got 2 quarts in there. Dealer said it held 2.1, so either, you know, it didn't drain all the way because this isn't sitting on jack stands, it's just riding on the tires here. Or that 2.1 is a little gracious. Or you're supposed to do what I did and put the plug in when it comes whooshing out of there. So there we go. We'll get the skid plate put back on, and there's a simple ATF4 fluid change in a 2015 Jeep JK. This is the 2-door, so it's a JK on the transfer case. Alright, I figured I'd record the last part because, you know, why not? So, fluids changed, everything's wiped up. It's been, oh gosh, 10 minutes, and there's nothing, you know, hanging on any threads or anything. So it's time to put the skid plate back on, and all the floor jack as far as moral support. It's skid plate's heavy when you're trying to put the bolts back in. So there we go. That'll give me the ability to at least hand start them. Because these were not even in there that terribly tight to begin with. I don't remember if I said that at the beginning, but there we go. Piece of cake. Go around to the other side, put that other one in, and we'll be rocking. And somebody's calling me. This is kind of a wimpy looking skid plate. I'm sure there's something better in the aftermarket, but we'll run this for now. You can see I've been I've been utilizing the skid plate on the gas tank. I got hung up on a couple things on one of our last trips out, so I like the guys I go with because it's your vehicle, your call. Alright, that's on there tighter than it was when I took it off, so we're going to go with that. same thing there. That's tighter than it was when I took it off. Go. Skid plates back on. Now, up in the video, since I'm waiting for my plug to, or my tool to come in, you'll notice something is in the way right here. I'm not sure who needs to have their ass kicked over at Chrysler. This exhaust pipe is in the way of the transmission drain plug. So, I wonder if it'd be, I wonder how hard those bolts are to get off right there. Pull this crossover pipe out of the way. Just enough to get the tool in there. The transmission is the one that I really want to check because in third gear low range, or when you're shifting up, excuse me, in low range from 2 to 3, if you don't let the transmission slow down, you get a little bit of teeth chatter. So it doesn't do it when you're driving it normally around town, but I am the second owner of this vehicle, and the first owner never off-roaded it. But now that I know the condition of the transfer case fluid, I'm really curious on the condition of the manual transmission. That way at least I have a baseline so I know, and I'm curious if there's any metal shavings. So it might be a week or two before I get to that video. Today is my last day to have some time to mess around with this stuff for a while, unless I can work in a couple of spare hours coming up. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that.